today. Hey guys, thanks for being here. Again, it's Jane, Irwin, Sharon McKenzie, and we've been doing this since about February when we joined up with Nicole and James, who brought us on board to kind of talk about the residential stuff. And all these Tuesdays are brought to you by Virtual REI Academy. Our website's there, or we have a YouTube channel. So if you miss the Tuesday, you can always watch it on YouTube, which is where everybody goes. And if you check out our website real quick, some freebies on there. And then, if you want to join, that's cool too. We have a lot of good information, a lot of classes, tons of instructors with tons of experience. So you don't make the same mistakes that we have made throughout our short career here. So, without further ado, we're gonna tonight talk about
a deal analysis and a case study. We came upon a lead for this one unit in the condo, and we're going to show you a short video and then talk about the video and maybe get some feedback from everyone here of what you've seen and your thoughts and considerations are for this unit.
And this was a quick, like late at night, I usually scroll through Facebook and different things. This was just in one of the little Sarasota groups that this particular property popped up where they were, I guess, trying to get people to just answer up. So answered up on the ad real quick, asked if they would be interested in owner financing, and right away they responded back. So got the address and some other information. We'll play the video real quick.
Yeah, and this is actually situated in a pretty nice area in downtown Sarasota in Florida, in the Gulf side. Oops.
Come on, technology, don't fail us now.
Hold on, I gotta move this out of the way.
And this is just a real quick tour that we did through the neighborhood after we talked to the owner, and we'll kind of start with that in a second. Just look at the video real quick, see what you see what your
maybe write down some thoughts,
write down some things you see that you like, you don't like,
your input. This is a condo community that probably had about 20 different buildings in there, condo buildings. It's a pretty large condo community. Okay. Is that the end of it?
Yeah, that was just a short video. That was just our little tour through there. Then we quickly assess things.
Does anybody want to give some input, what they seen, what they liked, what they didn't like, maybe ideas or their quick analysis? I know it's a quick video, but anybody want to shout out what they saw or give any feedback for us?
I think it needs some curb appeal upgrade. That's the first thing when I kind of look through the video. I haven't looked inside the house, but if they didn't really take a good care of the house outside, I wonder what the condition inside might be. So maybe need some new landscape just to make it more presentable. That's my first thought.
Yep, I agree.
Anybody else?
Is that a stucco building or a brick building?
It's a concrete block concrete building, like a lot of typical buildings in Florida have the block construction buildings for the hurricanes and wind.
Okay, looks like a nice building, strong, but roof looks like a little bit dated.
Bingo.
Exactly. That's one of our concerns. We saw all the roofs look like they need to be replaced. And there's so many buildings in there. There's about 20 different buildings in this condo community.
I think there's a question in chat.
Oh, go ahead. Just, you want to talk or do you want me to? A lower income community. That's what when we looked at it too, we were wondering, it looks like it might have been like more rentals. Like maybe a rental area or lower income. That's what we were thinking as well. Anybody else?
When you guys are looking at specific areas or properties, do you look at the school districts too? Or is that a non-issue?
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
one of the number one things you look at.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So do you worry about if they need new roofs? You don't have a lot of control over condo fees or special assessments. And so where does that play into your calculations?
That's
Right. We're trying to get to the presentation part. that
Yeah,
has
that's-
that. I
that's
don't know why we
ex-
can't get there, but
well, I wanted to get everybody
Oh.
else's input first. We wanted to see, we wanted to have people look at it. I know it's a quick video and have everybody's input and see what they think, and then we were going to go through. But that's another thing. When you're looking at a condo, you want to see about reserves, if they have a lot of reserves in place, or if there's any special assessments coming down the pipe, which you guys nailed a lot of the things. It needs more curb appeal. It looks like it's more of renter community or lower income, so people don't have the money to put out. The homeowners that are living there, if it's lower income, they wouldn't have the money to put out if reserves are coming down the pike. All the roofs need to be replaced, and there's at least 20 buildings, so that's a high ticket item right there. So that's a lot of things to look at and to contemplate when vetting a condo. So the precursory research.
right. And so we got the ad. We answered the lady on Facebook. She said to call her husband the next day. So upon talking to him, we got through and we asked about, why they're selling, all that good stuff, because we're trying to, solve problems. And right away, speaking with him, because it's a HOA, we asked about the HOA. So he told us the price of that, and then asked him about the assessments. And he said, oh, that you don't have to worry about that because I've paid the $3,400 that we have to pay. So they're all up to date. Having been down that road before, I said, what about the special assessments that are coming up? And we had that hesitation where well, not that we know of. They're talking about maybe fixing a roof or two. So a roof or two times 20 plus is a whole different thing. So on paper, it was a good price. The comps were 235. They were asking 190. But then when we, ran it on MLS, it was down to 179. There was a price cut. So he tells me 190, 170. We got some discrepancies. So already we're,
Scratching
kind
our
of
heads.
some red flags are going up with just that. But, you pay a little bit more if you're going to, maybe if it's owner finance, or if there's some wiggle room in there, or it's a good rental or some other stuff. They had also told us it was a great investment property. And then Sharon, just doing some little background stuff, found out that you have to own the townhouse for a year before you can even get into the rental program. So then, that kind of puts that out of play.
And they don't allow short-term rentals, just the long-term rentals. And the comps came out when we ran our comps is 235. It was 179 to 199, and looking at just the front of the condo, we didn't even get a chance to go in yet. We were just passing by and decided to drive around and look through before we even set up an appointment to go on the inside. It looked like it needed quite a bit of work. So there wasn't much spread there. And then holding on to it for a year before we can rent it out. That was several different, like Jane said, red flags and with the valuation. But we decided to look a little further, and then analysis of the surrounding area around the complex. We decided to drive through there because we go through that area quite a bit. It's actually
Near the dog park.
It's a nicer area, that part of town. It's a nice, desirable section of Sarasota, and it's got good schools. It's a good school district there. Very nice upscale neighborhoods. It's less than 10 miles from Siesta Key Beach, which is like one of the #1 beaches deemed on at least the East Coast most every year. It's got beautiful sandy beaches that's sought after. And it's surrounded, actually, the other neighborhoods around it are luxury and higher end houses and gated communities. And there's a golf course not too far from it. So it's situated in a pretty nice, well sought after area. It's just kind of like this rough area in the Diamonds. And then we always look at like anytime we look at a house or a condo or a multifamily, we always look at the ingresses and egresses, how many entrances and exits, or if it's on a main road, that sort of thing. This one, it was a very large community and it only had one way in and one way out of it. But one good thing is at the end of it, there was a light. It had a light signal, so to go out into the main road. And the actual, when we drove around inside the community, as you saw, it was poor community conditions, distressed. The buildings were nice, strong block, but it was weird. Some of the buildings we saw, I've never really noticed that in other buildings before. It almost looked like it had like a crease or a seam was running across the middle, and the building bowed out a little bit, right where the balcony on the second floor was, that from the first floor, which that would have been something that we would want to look at further to see if there was some sort of structural issue, because about half of the buildings look like they had that. And that's like when we see some major structural issues in houses or buildings we're looking at, that's what do we do?
Run.
That's a signal to run. And as you guys pointed out, all the roofs were in major disrepair. He was like, oh, they patch and replace some of the roofs as you go along, but every one of those roofs looked like they needed to be completely replaced. And that's
And yeah, and even the basketball or the tennis court and the pool and some other stuff. So they had some amenities, but they weren't taking care of them. So those HOA assessments, you're going to have the roof, if new management comes in or for whatever reason it gets sold, all those assessments are going to come back on the owners, which are going to be very hefty. So him paying $4,000, down the road is probably going to be, more like 100,000 assessments on that property.
And just like Sarasota County and a lot of other counties, they're getting more regulations and getting more strict on hurricane quality windows, and they're very expensive. And a lot of those windows throughout were broken and busted, and they definitely were not the hurricane strength and quality windows. So when you do a certain amount of work to your house, you automatically have to put in the hurricane windows. So, and it used to be like if 50%, and now it's going down to like 40% if you do 40% rehab, and it could go down the pike where they just, as soon as you do a good amount of rehab or put a roof on, they might make you put the hurricane windows in as well. So just knowing your area, knowing what could be coming down, that could be another hefty assessment down the line.
And it's also permitted work. So I don't, like different areas have different rules here. If you do X amount of, say 30% rehab on what they deem 30%, then you're going to have to get permits for everything you do. So that could get you caught up too.
And then the analysis of the actual building and the unit itself. We went to, after we drove around the big area and then drove around the complex itself. And now we went to the building. And the one good thing about the building was it was like to the rear of the community, and it backed up to like a wooded area. So it wasn't in the middle on top of everybody else. But the neighboring units, they looked very distressed. Broken windows, high grass. There was trash and junk in the yards of the neighbors. Did you notice anything else about that?
No, and the unit itself was rehabbed fairly nicely, like they had already done some work to it. So the unit itself didn't, but just the whole around, you can just tell they didn't take care of it. And then obviously management isn't taking care of it with allowing all that stuff to kind of go on.
And it didn't appear like with the the way that the community looked, that they had a very strong HOA that was taking care of problems and on top of things. To, you know, how the broken window theory, there was almost every one of those buildings had 2 or 3 units with at least one broken window, or the curtains were ripped up, or the blinds were busted in the windows. So it was just higher grass, unkept, the landscaping didn't look right. So all those are things that you really want to, you know, look at and consider looking around.
How many buildings was it total? How many units?
It was approximately 20 different buildings in there. It was pretty large, had a lot of buildings. I would say at least 20.
Yeah, at
It
least
it was a good
And
mix.
just because we figured we were gonna pass on it, we didn't go back and do a lot of the things that we would have done, but just, I mean, that quick a ride around, we could tell that whatever unless he was practically giving it away, it wasn't gonna be a deal.
Yeah, like she had like a probably a 3-minute conversation with the wife the night before, maybe a 5-minute conversation with him. That took maybe 10 minutes to evaluate the property, run comps, look at the HOA and, you know, and get that information. And then we were already in that area, so we just drove into the neighborhood. So I'd say less than a half an hour, we were able to get a lot of information, decide, you know, the goods and the bads, positive, negative, maybe do that like T-bar, you know, reasons why to keep property, reasons why not. A lot of times those T-bars work too. I don't know if you guys use those, where you're looking at a deal or a property, you got the pros on one side, the cons on the other, and seeing if you can do some strategy to mitigate the cons. And then just, we wanted to throw in there considerations for evaluating condos, because I think we told you about our first property that we attained before we knew anything about real estate investing was a condo, and it went sideways. Well, luckily at the end we ended up making money, but it was a rough roller coaster of a ride, and we learned a whole lot. So we go down the gamut before we'd ever buy another condo again. We've bought a couple more since then, but we were very, very careful. And one of the things is you look at the strength of the HOA to see if, you know, the association and the condo association is on top of things, if they allow things to slide, if there's people in place that are actually, you know, if they care about the community, if it's engagement, if they, you know, like Jane was saying, that there was no pool or anything there, but there was a clubhouse, didn't look like it, and anybody went in it, or it didn't get used. And then they had the basketball courts and the tennis courts, and they didn't look like they have been used in years. So it didn't look like a very strong community where people came together to have events or activities, and then obviously there wasn't enough reserves in place so that they were having assessments. And he'd already admitted that he paid over $2,000 for one set of assessments that came down the pike, and there was many more. You could tell there was going to be many more current and future assessments down the pike, just the way that the buildings were. And then we had to look at the rules and policies, as if, I mean, like Jane was saying, that they don't allow short-term rentals, and technically you're not supposed to have a long-term rental in place unless you own it for a year. And then the monthly condo fees, we found out it was $400 a month, and we did not figure out what they covered. Some of them cover water, some cover cable, some cover Wi-Fi, some cover grass, some don't cover much at all. So you have to,
Apparently it wasn't covering the grass.
yeah, it wasn't covering the grass, so I'm not sure.
I think it was supposed to, though.
So, you know, you want to know what your fees are and what it covers, what it, you know, takes care of with the fees, and then the other rules of the community when you do consider condos or multifamilies. You have anything to add to this one? And like Jane said, we passed on it. And what Richard Branson says, Sir Richard Branson, business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. Moved on. So since then, we've got a couple other houses down the pike that we're looking at, and we closed on one today. So we're gonna start the rehab on that next week.
And I think it's just, we just wanted to give like a real time analysis of how we kind of look at things and how you can quickly, I think there's so many opportunities out there, just driving around. I think a lot of people don't see the opportunities driving around. Within 5 minutes, we're like 10 minutes from a dog park that we take our pup to. Within that area, just in a couple days, we found, a reverse mortgage that we're looking into. There's one with a tarp on the roof that's been on there for a year. So they obviously have some struggles. So just when you're driving around, look for that tall grass, look for, buildings in disrepair, look for, vacant houses, and then just do a little bit of research. All that took less than a half hour. And, had things went right, we would have picked up a pretty nice townhouse for less than 200,000, which is unheard of in Sarasota, and would have been a pretty good rental. Probably would rent for 2,500 if we could have. So there was a lot of good things that could have turned out, but just a quick assessment, and that was just something, a quick look on Facebook. So you never know where stuff's going to come from, and always being proactive will get you some deals.
Yeah, and just talking to people. There's a guy that we talked to that we kind of befriended, and he lives in a nicer, higher end community. And he just we've been talking to him for a couple of years and friends with him. And he happened to tell us the other day, stop by my house. There's a house next door to mine. They were renting it out. The renters tore it up. The renters left. And since then, it's just been degrading. The owners have not come back. Nothing's been done with it. And I'm sure the HOA is going to come in there and give them notices and this and that pretty quickly. So they'll probably want to sell it. So he gave us his address, told us to come over and look at the house and everything and get information on it. So, just this last week, we've gotten this opportunity, that opportunity, the one that Jane was talking about, the reverse mortgage. And actually, when we were leaving this condo, we came upon a estate sale at another section, couple communities down the street from this one. So we drove in there and talked to the people inside, and they gave us the name and number of the two daughters that live in Arizona that have to now sell this villa. So possibility to reach out to them to see if we can help them get that moved. And I know that's a 55 and older community, but there's always, things, deals to be had and structured and things, opportunities. And again, this is our email. If you need to shoot anything over to us or let us know. And Virtual REI Academy. There, as Jane was saying, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of great content by a lot of people that are still actively investing in real estate. There's been times in the past that Jane and I went to different classes and groups, and nobody was actually doing real estate. They were just teaching. The teachers were there teaching. Nobody was actually involved in investing or real estate. This is the real deal. People are out actively, successfully doing it every day and teaching. So it's very worthwhile. I'll stop sharing so we can
Who's got questions?
take questions or comments, or
There's a question in the chat
let me grab
from
that.
Adam.
Can you find out the occupancy rate and what happens if the community is to be sold to a developer to be torn down and rebuilt? Are distressed communities in nice areas replaced, and what's the benefit of the old owners to the old owners? Okay. I guess we could find out the occupancy rate by the
Yeah,
board.
like I was gonna say, when you buy a condo, like we typically ask them for all their financials, the reserves, who the board is. We'll go talk to the board. You can find out those, because that was one of the things that happened in our Daytona Beach condo, was because the occupancy rate was down. We had a harder time getting loans. So with condos, a lot of times they'll base things on either the stressed ones that they're behind, they're in the rears, and then occupancy. So then sometimes they basically won't give the condo folks a loan because of those two things. So those things you can kind of find out. As for the other stuff, I might defer to James or Nicole. I don't I'm guessing it could be sold and the developer could come in and do stuff. I don't know what happens. I know at some point in Daytona, Hard Rock Cafe came in and made us a very nice offer for everybody to sell, to which some of the knuckleheads in there voted that down because they didn't want to sell, and Hard Rock went someplace else, and then we had a whole bunch of assessments that nobody could pay.
Do you remember that one house we acquired in Tampa? That it was a condo, and we acquired it through a bankruptcy. And the new owners came to us because they were trying to they turned it into a
College apartments.
college apartments, and they said, you own the last one, and we need that one to turn the building to convert it over to these college apartments. So they're like, we
Name your price.
they were kind of name your price. So actually that worked to our benefit. The one where, all the homeowners wouldn't come together to make a decision worked against us, but us having the last one in that house in Tampa worked to our benefit. So do you have any, James or Nicole, do you have anything to add to about the developer?
I mean, I was reading an article about a lot of the stuff they're trying to do, I guess, in Miami in terms of building affordable housing. And they passed some law, and then all of a sudden, all the people like you're talking about, all the community members are like up in arms going, no, you can't put it here, you can't put it here, kind of thing. So I can see where that would stop a developer from, being able to move forward if they have just that one or two holdouts.
Right. And I know some of the older distressed mobile home parks down here, and I don't remember where it was. It might have been Tampa. Some people came in and they bought out the mobile home park. So then the people that, a lot of them, you own your mobile home, but you don't own the land. So then basically the developers come in and say, hey, cool, you got to take your mobile home off our property and you got to go. A lot of these are, they were in the 70s or 60s, whatever. So they probably can't be moved. The folks in that area can't move them. So then the developers will just say, hey, I'll give you $5,000. You leave your mobile home and hit the road and go find someplace else to live. So somebody was in uproar up in, I think, Tampa, that neighborhood up there, just most recently. So I'm guessing developers could use that approach. Same with condos, I would guess.
With condos, you would have to negotiate with all of the owners, and I suspect the way you would do that is to, particularly if it's a really distressed property, like you have all of these roofs, you have, there's just a lot of things that need to be fixed, that you would work through the condo association to offer to buy all of them. And then you would either have an apartment complex or a townhouse complex, and you could decide whether you're going to tear it down or you're going to rehab it and stuff like that. And that actually might be a strategy if that property is as distressed as sort of it sounds like it might be. I suspect there are a lot of people who are wanting out, who see these assessments coming down the road. And most people aren't going to be able to afford them.
Right.
So, there's several strategies I think you could use. You probably couldn't use the same one you would in a mobile home park, because everybody owns not only the building, but they're part of the land. And so it's actually with a mobile home park, somebody actually owns all of the ground. And so now you're just talking about the people having to deal with the people who own the home on the ground you own. I don't know. That would be my take on what you might do with this.
And that sounds familiar, because with Daytona we had some kind of meeting. That's where everybody was fighting when we first went in. But I think Hard Rock came in and was offering a couple $100,000 for each unit, which, in hindsight, most of those people, because a lot of people lost them because of the assessments, a lot of them were foreclosed or they're still paying those assessments. We bailed out at a good time when the property, everything was inflated down here. So we bailed out of it, but they still have assessments coming. But in hindsight, most of those people probably would have taken the 200K and just bailed.
And I don't know if it's normal, but like the ones that bail out, then they just divide it up into the owners that are there. So then you end up having higher assessments because it's divided into
Less.
fewer people, fewer
People.
units, because the other units they left or they're having to foreclose upon them, which makes it a bigger brunt of for the ones that are there trying to keep their units and pay the assessments.
Cool. Anybody else have any other questions? Hey, Anita. Thanks for being on.
So how does that work with the assessment? So these people own the property that you went to look at, and an assessment comes out for 20 grand. And they're like, well, we can't pay that. So does the bank foreclose, or can the HOA foreclose? Or they're just like, well, you can't sell the house because we have a lien on it till you pay us off. How does that work?
Yeah, I believe the and like with us with Daytona, what would happen, the folks that couldn't pay, and literally like they would say, we're having a special board meeting on Friday, and then Monday they would send out a letter and say, hey, by next Friday you need to come up with 10,000 for a special assessment. So that was how the board in Daytona worked. And then if those people didn't pay that money, it went right off to, like, they would try to work out a payment plan with some people, or they would send it right to the attorney. And then the attorney would say, hey, you either pay this or we're going to start foreclosing. So it was the HOA, I'm guessing was going to foreclose on it, which in Florida, I'm not sure if that's all states, but they take first position. So HOAs come up with a lot of good properties because they're in first position.
Even before the bank?
Yeah.
Wow.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think that's true in all states.
No, I think that's a pretty Florida thing, because all the HOAs and the HOAs are kind of run by, a lot, mostly non-business people, or some people just, and then they get an inflated head like they know everything, and they don't always do what's best for the group. They do what's best for them because they'll typically have a couple, 2-3 condos or something, so they do what's best for them and not necessarily what the people. And like in Daytona, we just had, one lady, she would get the HOA to foreclose, and then she would buy the condo, and then just a lot of shenanigans and nonsense going on with that one. But that's things you have to, kind of make sure the board is, not
Healthy.
a sister, a couple sisters and a brother, and somebody monopolizing who's going to get all the votes, and then the majority rules, and they kind of run the show. And then condos have another interesting feature now, because all the insurance in Florida has went up so far that now they're coming back, and the HOA fees that were 400, like this guy's probably at 400 right now, but because of the insurance, it's probably going to creep up to 600, because insurances are, they're raising it, hundreds
Triple.
of thousands of dollars on the actual condo building, plus you need insurance on your portion as well. So you're looking at, several hundred in just insurance alone. So, and then because of Surfside and the hurricanes, now we have the mandatory structural engineer guys that come in, and that's a couple $100,000 that they put back on the condo owners.
That they all have to be.
So I guess buyer beware if you guys see, like, a real, all these condo deals popping up that are really good deals. Make sure you do your due diligence on a lot of that, because it's not stuff that shows up in the paperwork. It's just going to be what you get slammed with later on. And people, I think if it goes through a real estate agent, they have to disclose the special assessments that they know about. But if it's a owner selling it, they don't really have to disclose. So just some food for thought when you see those Florida condos popping up for sale. Any other questions? Oh my goodness, we can't stop at 8:04. This is craziness.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are you two primarily just purchase property in Florida? Is that No,
We're like Nicole, on a way lesser scale, but we bought in 11 states, so we have properties in probably 8 states right now. So, like the Southeast, just landlord friendly places, and because Florida has gotten, I mean, they just got ridiculous here in the last, pre-COVID and going through COVID with 100,000 over ask. I mean, it just doesn't make sense for us investment wise. We just found some other, smaller markets. We like to be out in the country a little bit, not in the city. So Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, some areas of Florida. We do have a couple properties in Florida, but
Oh, we'll always,
actively,
we'll
we always
invest-
look.
We
It's
always
just-
invest in Florida, yeah. That's
I mean, we're just kind of waiting for the foreclosures to come in, which, they're going to be coming in pretty soon, or, the subject to deals that, might be coming about.
all right. I'm gonna definitely send you email, especially for the subject to one. That's my farming area, so a lot of creative deal coming up. So what would you say the top 3 most effective strategy for you to kind of target those off-market direct to seller deal that you have seen success? I know you mentioned about the Facebook driving for dollar.
Yeah,
trying to
we did a little bit of everything. When we first started, the HUD Home Store was our best friend. We probably got 75% of our properties off there. We really like Hudson during COVID. Hudson and Marshall was our best friend. Just because we didn't need an agent with that, but and that's kind of how we got it more into Mississippi and Alabama and different states, because we're like, oh, I can just bid anywhere with Hudson and Marshall, right? Driving for dollars is big with us, and it doesn't, it doesn't matter wherever we go, you see properties, right? So if I'm in South Carolina and we're driving to see a friend, then we're looking in that area, and you already have boots on the ground. Driving for dollars is always, I think we're pretty good at kind of seeing the distressed vacant, renter people that aren't paying kind of things.
and creating our own lists, like, we bought lists from other people, and they're either lists that everybody else have been using and they're saturated, or they're old. If we, like Jane said, drive for dollars and then grab like street names in like a big section that we like, and then just go home and, grab them up off the internet and find vacant owners lists, and just create our own. And then you don't have to do as many, because usually if you have those buy those lists, you got to do like 1,000 to get like 1 or 2 deals. If you create your own list, they're, your list for yourself, and you might only have to do 300 to 500 to get a deal. And it's all numbers game.
I think there's definitely value in Facebook. Some of the not maybe like marketplace, but there's other like side groups, and that was like Sarasota word of mouth or something. So like every town has like word of mouth, and then that's just, sometimes they'll just throw a deal up there, or they'll say, hey, I need a plumber, but then you get your contractors too, because people say, oh, he's good, I've used him. So you can get some contractors that way, to then, if you find something, you get your boots on the ground. So they're primarily our ways. Recently we've been doing Liz pendants, just because we ran into that reverse mortgage, and we've never done a reverse. Typically we toss them to the side because everybody's kind of said there's no value in them, but the one we found is, I think they owe $240 and it's worth $350. So potentially they're, and the grass is out of control and stuff. So I think they have 2 heirs in a different state. So that might be something that we look at, if we can, just pay it off and give them a couple dollars. We have friends that do very well with that in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that's their primary niche that they get properties on, is probate. So
It's if you can get into a niche that people are afraid of, or the people, like what somebody said, people said, stay away from reverse mortgage. But if you get good at it and learn how to do it, that'll be a niche, and you'll capitalize that market, because very few people do that. So that's one good thing, is develop a niche that people run from, or they're intimidated by, and just learn
yeah,
it.
short sales. I think there's do you know anybody in Baltimore that does? I know Mike Albally does the short sales in Baltimore. I think he's got a pretty good niche with that.
Valerie Scott does short sales too.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
good,
Good.
great. And that's
She
like,
does-
not very many people do that.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, she's really, really good at it. And she's also does REOs and kind of those things. I don't know about reverse mortgages, but she does a lot of short sales.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a guy down here in Florida that he does very well. He lives over on the near Orlando. So Hunter does a very good job at the short sales, and every time I turn around, he's closing on something that makes a couple $100,000. So he's gotten good at them as well. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and much more. Thank you. I'll be
Cool.
sending you email to discuss
Okay,
offline
I'll
about
be looking for it.
future opportunity. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Anybody else? Any questions? Can be about anything.
And like James said, any thing that you want us to talk about in the future? Oh, what do you think about college student rentals?
We personally have not done them. We know people that have done them and have done well. I think it's a niche that you can get into. You just have to know some I know one of the things that one of our friends did student rentals, they had the parents sign for the kids, because when they tear the house up, then or if they tear the house up, then basically the parents were held liable for the damage. But I'm sure it has some niches in it. If you like, I can try to find somebody that is an expert in that field, and maybe we'll get them on here one Tuesday just to kind of talk about that.
I know a couple of people that's done it pretty successfully, so we can get.
Is that something you're thinking about, Adam?
Hi, I'm not sure if my mic works.
Yep, it
does.
does perfectly.
Great, great. I'm actually kind of like, I just retired and I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I'm not sure if I want to get into real estate or not from all the headaches. And I'm very curious also how everybody gets contractors and repair people and not get ripped off that way. But this is a slow burn for me at this point, kind of self-education.
Gotcha.
So-
Cool. Well, congratulations on retirement.
So thank you.
If you get into real estate, you just you'll have another job now. It's not like a job, because it's fun, and it's always different. So as far as contractors go, I think you do what you can to protect yourself. If you go on our website, I think it's on there for free, but it's a scope of work that we typically use that has protected us pretty well. You never pay the contractor up front, never, ever. You just, you give him draws, and you want to make sure they're licensed, and just get referrals, and don't just get them, call those people to see, go look at their work. Have them meet you, and if they show up drunk, don't hire them.
We've had that.
Yeah, and just different things, like look at their truck, because if their truck is a hot mess, then guess what? They're probably gonna, if it's all broken down and falling apart and trash all in it, McDonald's and all that stuff, not to judge, but if they're keeping their truck like that, they're probably going to keep your house like that. And, that's not something you want. So there's a lot of stuff you can do to protect yourself, and use other investors to get, some investors are pretty chintzy with their giving up their contractors, because they think they'll leave them. But, I think the contractors that we use, they're pretty grateful that we give them other work to do, because you can't always keep them busy. There's going to be downtimes, and you still want them working and happy. And then, you'll find that they'll always come back to you and put you in first position if you treat them right. So,
And always have backups, because they're great, and then
they're not.
and
Life
then
happens.
something happens and they go awry. So you always want backups as well, or backups that way when you get busier and you get more than one job, you can put a team on one flip and a team on another flip. That way you can diversify and get more stuff, get more things done in a quicker period of time. So make more money. And another word of advice is, people that say that they're just thinking about it and learning, they don't usually get out of that learning phase until they jump in and take action and actually do even something small, like a wholesale or a small cosmetic flip, or, JV with somebody, just, get in there and actually hands-on doing it is when you actually succeed and see if you really like the work, and, get into your niche or whatever, and see what you like about investing and what you like to do and what you don't like to do.
Right. That's what I'm trying to figure out right now at this point, whether I want to get into actually having to work at real estate, or if I want to just like stick with playing the stock market or whatever else, I'm willing to lose money on. So,
Well,
You can be a private money lender, and you still have to know some stuff about real estate, because you don't want somebody to come and say, "Hey, Adam, can I borrow $50,000 for this flip, and I'll give you 12% and 2 points?" And you're like, "Hey, that's a great deal." But then you find out that, that house is a complete disaster. It needs $100,000 worth of work, and they overpaid for it, and it's not going to make the money. And then you're not going to make your 50,000. So you still have to be able to evaluate properties and know what you're looking for and make sure that person is squared away. But at the same time, then once you have those things figured out, then it's pretty easy just to, lend money. You have your lawyer draw up the paperwork. You're secured by real estate, and you don't have as much of the headache, if that makes sense.
okay, thank you. That's what I'm going to try and figure out, basically. So
Cool.
that's why I
I
have a
don't
lot
like
of
the stock
questions
market.
also.
That's awesome.
we're like Nicole, we like the control. The stock market, you don't have the
I
control.
don't like this. I lost too much in the stock market.
Hi, I just wanted to add one thing that Adam said he just retired. You were talking about how he could invest. I just wanted to say you can also invest in real estate in your IRA, in the self-directed IRA.
Yes,
That's a
ma'am.
great point. And it's tax deferred or tax free.
Well,
Right, it's tax deferred until you take out your gains, right? But you can take your gains from one project and put it into the next project, and it keeps rolling over, so it's just a great way to do it.
yeah, I'm afraid I only have a couple more years before mandatory RMIs and things like that kick in too. But yeah, I realize that it's going to be something I'm exploring and will consider. I have some friends that are doing some of this, so this is kind of why I guess why some of this interest is coming up.
So
That
you
makes
can
sense.
also take a traditional IRA and move it into a Roth, at least some of it, and there is no mandatory withdrawal and no time when you have to stop putting money in a Roth. So I'm all for Roth IRAs.
Oh, yeah.
So another way that we used to find contractors is go to the big box stores, go to kind of like somewhere where you can buy paint, where you can do plumbing, and you ask people there if they can. Now they're not going to give you one person, but if you ask them to give you 2 or 3 names of people who have been in business and working with them for 8 or 10 years, now you've got people who pay their bills and who have been around for a while. Those are good ways to find people. And I agree with Sharon and Jane that contractors have a shelf life, so you always need a backup.
Right.
That's a great idea about Home Depot, Lowe's, those places. That's a great point.
And there's I think with contractors, the one thing that we find the most squared away contractors we know are the ones that have their paperwork in order. So right away when we ask them for a scope of work, so we walk the house, get the scope of work. If they, send it back on a napkin, or, it's just handwritten or whatever, but if they shoot us out, a real scope of work or an invoice, or like a QuickBooks scope of work or something, then they're probably a little bit more squared away than the guys writing down on a notepad and they just, take a picture of it and send it to you. So we found that those guys are typically more reliable, and, the contractors we use have their paperwork in order. That's one thing. And then also another, because we're in different states, one other method that we kind of use, we actually call the code guys and say, hey, you know, who are the people that you do not have problems with? And they'll typically rattle off, you know, 5 or 6 contractors that, you know, they don't have to babysit, or they know they pull the permits. You know, that's kind of code for, they can't recommend them, but they'll say, hey, these are the ones that pull the permits. And, you know, most of the little local offices we deal with, they're more than happy to share that because they don't want the problems either. So we get some good contractors that way as well.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Sure, of
I didn't
course.
mean
no
to
problem.
sidetrack this into that line. That's
No,
And-
that's
That's what we're here
that's what
for.
we're here for.
That's-
We're here to answer questions and try to make everybody do things the right way and not some of our mistakes, because we want you guys to not have to make those mistakes.
Learn from us. And that's what we learn from our coaches and teachers ahead of us, so we don't make their mistakes. So passing it
well,
down.
I learned a little bit about Florida property because I inherited an apartment, in a condo, and I learned about special assessments, and all the the hurricane-proof windows, and I ended up finally selling it at the time. Well, I can tell you exactly when the bottom of the 2008 market was, which is when
Oh,
it was like guaranteed that when I sold it, that would be the bottom. But
man.
but at least I got out from the $12,000 a year in special assessments and $12,000 a year in condo fees, and
Wow.
yeah, it was eating me up. So yeah, so that's why I'm being very careful. I'm definitely learning from you guys.
Awesome.
That's great.
Appreciate
That's
that.
awesome. That is-
Thank you.
I think
Thank you
Latanya
for
has a
being-
question.
Oh, a session on creative financing. Actually, if have you seen our webinar that we have? It has all kinds of creative financing and all on there. Plus, we could also do a short session here as well. And she would go to oh, there it is. Thank you, James.
Thank
You're
you,
the-
James.
We
It's
love
like
you,
the-
James.
from above. I was trying to figure out how to minimize,
I
put
was
that link in there.
Oh, yeah. If you get on there, it has all kinds of awesome strategies and just at your convenience, just view that webinar, and it is great. It's awesome. It's got a lot of cool strategies and some really advanced strategies as well. It's got the whole gamut.
I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Sure. Al?
Yes, I'm in the process of trying to get my first property. So it's a little weird now. But is there anything from your years of doing this that you could kind of impart on me, things that you like looking back, say, hey, I would have done this a lot differently?
That's
I
a
think
lot
we
of
could
things.
probably spend like 8 hours at least doing that. I think for us, we just always have to do stuff. So getting your first property, because each thing you learn a little bit more. Some things you can before you have your properties, make sure you have a good title company, make sure you have a good attorney, make sure you're, set up the right way for tax benefits, however you're gonna take, whatever you're gonna do with that property, if it's a rental property or you're gonna wholesale it, make sure you know about the taxes. A lot of what we did was jump in and then, we paid the consequences later because we wholesale properties and everybody forgot to tell us that, hey, that's a big tax hit, or you should put X amount of dollars aside because you're going to be paying more, or you're going to flip a property and we had the property in our own name and that's a personal consequence. So just kind of those things, brush up on that. But then just I still think sometimes just jumping in, and then you have a group here that if you run into any issues, you just, kind of bring that up ahead of time and we kind of guide you through those things so you don't step in the landmine.
Exactly. And
If I could
insurance
add,
makes-
if I
Sure.
could add something in here about that, because that's kind of I've been doing this for 25 years, and one of the things I see a fair amount is that people tend to fall into two camps. One is they kind of jump in and take action, and the other is the opposite, where they think they have to know everything about everything and have all of their stuff put together before they do anything. And you to buy your first property, you really don't have to have a whole lot of stuff in place before you get the first one under contract. And then you can start building things out. But don't spend a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time kind of building the infrastructure until you have a deal or two. Then kind of go in and do it. So I guess that would be my thing, is it kind of play down the middle a little bit. You don't have to have everything in place, but you don't need to know something before you jump in.
Thank you.
Yep,
I got
I totally
one
agree.
real quick question. Should I be okay
sure.
with breaking even on my first property, especially with the interest rates being the way that they are? And I know eventually, hopefully they'll come back down and I can refinance. So should I be,
Yeah,
go ahead.
you need to try and make money on the first deal, on any deal. I would not go in thinking it's a break-even deal unless I had many, many moons of experience, because there are always, and I do mean always, some unexpected something that comes up. And so, I'm always dialing in, $1,000, $2,000 that I'm going to have to put out at least on something that I didn't intend or didn't think of. And so I think you plan on making money. One of the things a lot of new investors I see doing is they try and make a deal when it's really not a deal.
Not a deal.
And it's harder to walk away once you get yourself invested in a possible deal. You really want that first deal and you really want it to work. But you have a couple of them that go sideways, and it takes people out of the game before they ever really get in. What do you guys think? Sharon,
Yeah,
I
Jim?
agree.
I don't ever like, I don't like to lose anything. Like we can play dominoes. I don't like to lose. So I don't go into anything wanting to lose anything or being okay with that. So, and to me, worst case scenario, if you think you're going to break even, you're going to lose money. So we always, best case, worst case, kind of what's going to happen middle of the road, but your worst case scenario is always what you should plan for, and then plan below that. And then, so to me, if you're planning on breaking even, you're probably going to lose money. And, it puts a bad taste in your mouth. And then you're like, well, I don't want, real estate stinks. I don't want to do it, all that stuff. So I would go into it, expecting to make money and figure out how to make money. And some of our best deals are the ones we walked away from that, like we just fell in love with the deal and we were going to make it happen no matter what. And we were going to do it. But, if we would have did it, we would have lost our ass on it. So
Or if we try to force a deal to work and we make a little bit of money and it takes a lot of time and effort to get to making a little bit of money, you could have put that time and effort into another deal that was better, bringing in more money, and it might have came into fruition even faster. So you have to look at it that way too. And we always learned, we learned from our mistake. Don't fall in love with the deal and don't fall in love with the property, because there's many more to come.
that's like shooting fish in the barrel or whatever that saying is. And now I would look at that webinar also. It's just a lot of the creative stuff. You don't have to have money. You can just, take it subject to, or there's a lot of creative ways that you can ensure that you're not going to lose money or break even. Hope that helps.
Yeah, everybody here, I would take a look at that webinar. It's got a lot of valuable information in it, a lot of different deal structures and strategies.
And the creative deals are going to be coming, like that. We're already seeing it where people are just, they either have to walk away or they have to figure out something else, or, you can get an option on it now because, maybe later that they're senior and not going to be able to afford what's coming down the pike. So there's a lot of things that are going to be coming to investors. So just brush up on the creative stuff.
Thank you. I've already got the webinar queued up already in the background, so I appreciate
Awesome.
it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yep. Good deal.
Okay.
All right, 8:29. So we got a whole hour in, and we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Again, check out the website. A lot of free stuff on there, especially get that scope of work. I'm pretty sure that's on there, right, James? Freebie.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, a lot of free stuff on there, but that'll help you out with the contractors. And I think next week we're gonna talk about our rehab. We're gonna work the rehab with you guys, so to speak. So from getting it under contract to getting it to the title company to getting the keys in our contractor's hand, we'll probably run through some of that next week. Appreciate everybody being here, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Good night, everybody.